Good evening, fellow brewers and travellers of YouTube. Welcome back to the Blue Trouser Brewery. And what are we going to be brewing today? I am brewing a Marzen, which is a nice German Festbier from Munich. And this is a recipe from a good friend, Chris Millington, who is also my co-conspirator on the Hop Edition podcast. He kindly shared the recipe with me, which he calls the Marzen, or the Marzen, if you wish to pronounce it correctly. There's only a small amount of brew footage, so this is mostly going to be about mostly focused on reviewing the beer and the recipe, but let's roll the brew footage anyway. So here she is. So this is a style of beer that is from Munich, Germany. It is one of the Festbiers, traditionally brewed in March, hence the name. Marzen is March in German, and it's typically drunk in October during the Oktoberfest, and it is supposed to be a very malt forward, more kind of, I guess, certainly maltier than your typical lager. As you can see, the colour is kind of an amber, orange, coppery kind of colour, and yeah, it's a pretty unique style of beer. However, I will add that this is not actually a lager. This is a pseudo lager, simply because I fermented this with quake. So I fermented this with Uber, or Ube, U-B-B-E, which is a Norwegian quake, which is typically used to make their sort of style of lagers, and comes out very clean, quite crisp. So it's a warning label to say typically you would technically ferment this with a lager yeast, preferably the Marzen, the Munich Marzen lager yeast, which off the top of my head is WLP 820. So if you want the proper, right, do that. However, you can experiment like I did. As it happens, I couldn't really get hold of that yeast. In fact, I didn't really try very hard. But Chris recommends using Uber or Ube, I'm not quite sure what the pronunciation is. Again, maybe just Google that. Anyway, let me get onto the beer. So, on the nose. On the nose you get some definite sweetness. So I'll give you an idea of the recipe. So this came in at 4.9%. I had an OG of 1050. The grist is made up of floor malted Vienna malt, which is from Warminster, which made up about 77%. Munich at 12.3%. Carapils at 8.8%, and Munich 120 Loverbond or 235, 240 EBC at 2%. I added Pearl at 60 minutes at 35 grams and Hallertau Hersbruck at 30 minutes. The water profile was an Oktoberfest Marzen style water profile. I used RO to build this up. Slightly heavier on the chloride to sulfate. It is a nearly 2-to-1 chloride to sulfate ratio. And as I said, I used Ube or Uber, which I fermented at 32 degrees Celsius at 10 psi for about 15 minutes, and it was finished. So yeah, on serious point, it was probably about 5 days, and then I started to cold crush it. Sat it to 2 psi for about 2 or 3 days, and then kegged it. So it was a speedy turnaround for what is supposed to be a lager. It has been sat in the keg for quite a while, actually, at least 3 or 4 weeks, and it has not really cleared up, which I'm a little disappointed about, despite using Protafloc and Clarity Firm. It hasn't cleared up, and apparently Ube is supposed to be really flocculent. So I'm not quite sure what's happened there, which is a little bit disappointing. I was hoping for a nice, really crystal clear lager, pseudo lager, but it just hasn't happened. So on the nose, you're getting like a toffee-ish caramel kind of aroma. And also just a slight sort of herbal fruitiness that's just coming from the hops. That's very gentle. Obviously you're not really getting much in the way of a yeast contribution. That's what I'm getting on the nose. So I'm going to tuck in. So up front, you're getting actually a nice kind of lagerish vibe. Maybe, I'd say like an element of sulphur, but definitely a lagerish vibe, which is good to notice in the beer because obviously using that type of yeast. You know, it's not actually a traditional lager yeast, but you are getting a kind of lager vibe going on. As far as I know, Ube is technically an ale yeast. It is not a lager yeast. But then once you get past that, you get a nice fizz of carbonation. It rolls right into a kind of fruity caramel toffee thing, and then finishes out with a really lovely graham cracker, almost biscotti kind of thing at the end. Yeah, it's you get caramel, then it rolls into kind of a slight hop fruitiness. but not. It's kind of a noble hop fruitiness. I think that's coming from the Hersbrucker, and then it rolls off into this really nice graham cracker thing. The body is pretty light. I would say medium to low or light body, and it's super dry. It finishes off very, very nicely. I'm not precisely sure where my fizzy. Mine finished at 10:10, so not super dry. Mine actually came out at 4.9% on the nose. I had a original gravity of 1047. It finished at 1010. The actual recipe was due to start at 1050 and finish at 1013. So I think I lost a little bit of efficiency during the brew day. And yes, I set my brewhouse efficiency at 76%, which is a fairly ambitious target, and came in at 71. So, which is probably a little bit more realistic, to be honest. But there you have it. So, in fact, my brewhouse efficiency was a little lower than that. 70.75 to be precise. And I don't even have a brew log. It's a lie, I do have a brew log. I'm just not using it like a nerd, like someone else. Let's get the brew log out. Don't do a beer review of a 7.5% beer before trying to do your own YouTube videos. It's just bad advice. I'm giving this advice to my future self to tell myself not to do that. Dickhead. So, I am really enjoying this beer. Chris, I think, has painstakingly gone through version after version of this beer. He's a big fan of the Marzen, and I can see why. And I think brewed well, this is a real cracker of a beer. But next time, I would like to brew it with the actual Marzen, the Marzen yeast, just to really see a comparison. And I think I really want to work on the clarity. You know, I really want it to be a nice crystal clear, how you expect a lager, because that is, it's pissing me off a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, it's pissing me off. Not that I should care, but your eyes are definitely a part of the experience, and there's an element of home brewing pride, I think, in terms of getting a nice crystal clear beer. Unless, of course, you're brewing a hazy. A hazy. That's how we say it these days. A hazy. I don't, for the record, call it a hazy. But a lot of people do. I prefer to go with the proper nomenclature of New England IPA or Hazy Pale Ale. So that's it, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Like and subscribe and all that. And see you guys in the next video.